three major tenets of the flat Earth theory. First, the speed of the Earth's rotation. Second, the distances of travel and line of sight. And third, Antarctica and beyond the pole being the edges of the flat Earth. By examining these three items, we'll see the totality of the concept. First of all, we have to look at what the globe theory states, that the Earth is 24,000 miles wide, or circumference. Now, understanding this, that is an incredibly large and long distance. So, while the Earth spins at 1,000 miles per hour, it takes 24 hours for the Earth to spin once. That's how we get day and night. So, in effect, you take the 24,000, divide it by the 1,000 miles per hour, and that's how you get 24 hours. So, in effect, the Earth isn't, we're not moving at 1,000 miles per hour on the surface of the planet, because the Earth is so big, so big, that we're actually moving at the speed of a second hand on a clock. It's almost impossible to detect the motion. That's how slow it is. Now, this is a satellite photo, which many flat earthers don't believe there are satellites. But this is an actual, you can find a link for this, and I'll put it on, I put it on a previous video. This is, Ecuador has a satellite up in space. And this is actually a live feed that anyone can check out. And you can notice changing weather patterns that correspond with the weather of the day. So this is live. It can't be contrived. It can't be manipulated. It can't be drawn by an artist. And it clearly you see the curvature of the Earth there, and the continents and some clouds below. Now there are many such satellites that are up there that are not by NASA, because I know the main flat earthers believe that NASA is the biggest conspirator in this, in the world perhaps. But many of these satellites that are up there are not even by countries that are necessarily friendly to the U.S. So, again, disputing the curvature of the Earth, the spin, and you can see in this gives you the idea of how slow and gradual, that spin really is. And like I say, when you're on the Earth, it's moving at like a second hand. So this idea of 1,000 miles per hour, if it were a car, yes, it would be an incredible amount of speed. But when you deal with something that's 24,000 miles wide, you have to understand that takes such a long time to make that spin that it's literally appears motionless. Now here's a video of some solar flares on our sun, and clearly these you can find, there are live feeds that monitor the sun, because these solar flares can affect everything from our power grid to the weather. So these things are constantly being monitored, and you can have access to this. Another example is an eclipse, that clearly when the Earth gets between the sun, or when the moon gets between the sun and the Earth, or vice versa, you'll get an eclipse. And you can observe this yourself from Earth. Next to deal with are the distances of travel and the line of sight. Things like water flow and being able to see something over the horizon. And the best way to understand this is to imagine if you see the Earth in the first picture as a globe, or you see it as a flattened square, or even a flattened globe, you could say, that the 24,000 miles becomes 6,000 miles around the side. Now, if you look at the third in the upper right-hand corner, as you turn it into an octagonal, there's 3,000 miles along each so-called side at that point. Now, if you further take it to the lower left to a 16-sided figure, it's 1,500 miles. And then, as you see, once we hit 32 and then ultimately 64 or 128, the globe, the difference becomes, it starts to look like a globe again. So in effect, because of this, the large distances we're talking about, this idea that if somebody's 50 miles away from you, they should disappear underneath the horizon line is simply not true. They would have to be several hundred miles away to even start to slightly, by inches, maybe a foot or so, to go beyond the horizon. And since the Earth is not a perfect circle, the line of sight at some areas, as it widens, is even much longer along the horizon line. So when you it's a globe, but you can see very far. Now, here's another flaw. On the right-hand side is a map used by many flat earthers and the so-called UN type of structure of the planet. Now, if you take that and look at the 6,000 miles around the edges of the flat Earth, a diagonal would be 8,400 miles. Now, over on the right-hand side, I've got an arrow from Sydney, Australia to Dublin. Well, that distance is 10,693 miles. That's a fact. So, how could, and that's not the full length of the so-called flat Earth. It's actually over 2,000 miles more than what they're saying. So, that breaks that whole theory. Now, as far as Antarctica is concerned, being at the end of the world, I've dealt with this before in an earlier video. Of course, Antarctica is as you can see from this video clip, is one of the hardest places to get to. And not that many people have been there. But when they say not that many people, there have been thousands of people. And when you get there, it's a beautiful place. People arrive by ship. It's this pristine, beautiful environment. People ski there, and there have been many explorers. People get there also by plane, ice planes. There are ice runways. These three gentlemen are people I worked with who actually walked from one end to the other. And of course, historically, these are the great explorers that have done the same. This man walked from one end by himself. And you can see here's a route from the North to the South Pole. Now, the question arises, well, there's nothing beyond the South Pole. But the fact is, there are bases beyond the South Pole. Many bases. And many people have been beyond that point. And in fact, there's actually a highway that was constructed from McMurdo Station, which is a base on the southern part of the continent. So, where South America is at the top or Africa is at the top, this is the road. You can see these trucks. This thing goes hundreds of miles, and they've decided to use trucks and less planes even to fuel. This is what the South Pole looks like. There's these bases there. There's people living there. At any given time, in the summertime, 4,000 people live on the continent of Antarctica. In the winter, it gets brutally cold, and there's only about 1,000 who live inside of the various bases. But that means at any given time, there's 1,000 people living on that continent. People get there from planes. People get there by boat. And on the continent itself, and I'm talking completely around, all around, from the south, north, east, and west, they can drive. There's a highway, literally an ice highway from the south to the pole. This is an overview of the South Pole. And you can ski there, you can walk there, hike there. It's not off limits. There's international treaties that allow various countries to have research bases there. So the Antarctica theory of being the end of the earth is just simply not true. Folks, the earth is a spinning globe. We are in a solar system. It's a beautiful part of creation. Look for yourself. Open your minds to the beauty of creation and this great world we live on.